In Naruto, there's a lot of ways to get strong. You can study in Sage mode, you can get a curse mark, you can get a tailed beast sealed inside of you, you can unlock the 8 gates, or you can just run around the village until your legs get really strong. There really is no limit to the amount of paths that one can take in order to acquire strength. And that's kind of the beauty of a well fleshed out universe with differing characters, clans, powers, and abilities. But there is another way to get strong, a way that most people don't talk about because it's a bit unconventional. A way that doesn't require weights, or a tailed beast, or a stretchy snake man's neck to bite into yours. No, one of the surest fire ways to gain strength in the Naruto world is through bonds. And while a lot of you are saying,
what do you mean that's not talked about? That's literally the entire point of the show, Nick.
Today we're not going to be talking about how an individual character in Naruto can get stronger through their friends, but through their partner. Because, well, yes, absolutely. One of the key elements of Naruto is the fact that Naruto gains more strength than Sasuke because of the amount of friends that he makes, and the same argument could be made for Kakashi and Obito, and Kawaki and Boruto. It's a whole thing. But one of the aspects of being strengthened by bonds that's ignored in that argument is usually the most intimate kind of friendship, and that is that in the Naruto world, you can get stronger by marrying strong. Now, does marrying somebody strong make you stronger, per se? No, not really, unless you train with them every day. But much in the same vein that Naruto having a network of friends to help him in the 4th grade Shinobi World War is why he persevered over evil, having somebody that you're contractually married to cover your back whenever you need is a pretty big plus power-wise. And thus, while marrying Naruto won't give you a KCM mode as well, becoming one of the most important people in Naruto's world is a pretty good thing to be. Kind of like how many people say that Sakura's strongest summoning animal or her strongest jutsu is her Naruto jutsu. And let's not forget what happened when Pain decided to give the world's worst acupuncture to Hinata. All this is to say, if that Naruto can consider himself stronger on account of how many friends he has, then everybody in Naruto who's married somebody even relatively powerful should get to make the same claim. And today, we're talking about the legitimacy of those claims. Because today, we're talking the top 10 strongest couples in Naruto, ranked and explained. And trust me when I say, I got a couple of curveballs on this list. But before we get to ranking or explaining anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you love the idea of me ranking and explaining things from your favorite anime and manga, then you're gonna love my other channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of ranking and explaining things from Naruto and Boruto, I rank and explain things from all other anime and manga. And if you just like the idea of me talking anime and manga, then you're gonna love my anime podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, where me and Danny Mata break down everything that happened in anime this week. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Or if you just want to look like you keep up with all things anime and manga, you should go ahead and meander on over into my merch store, otakusanonymous.net, where you can pick up some of the greatest anime t-shirts, sweatshirts, and sticker packs known to man. To get into all that, today we gotta talk about our favorite recurring sponsor to the page, DraftKings Casino. Are you guys looking for an easy way to spice up these spring days without leaving the house? Because while summer might be right around the corner, the weather's not quite nice enough to kick open the door quite yet. Well, if you answered that question with yes, let me tell you about DraftKings Casino, the #1 online casino in America. DraftKings Casino has over 300 real money games. And while that in itself is exciting, the reason I'm partnering with DraftKings today is to tell you guys about an exciting deal that they're running right now. See, when all new customers sign up with the code NCHAMMER and make a minimum deposit of $5, they will get a deposit match. And that deposit match goes all the way up to $100, which means if you deposit $100, you get $100 matched in casino credits. And with over 175 slot games to choose from, ranging from your favorites to DraftKings exclusives, there's tons of ways to have fun, all from the comfort of your home. And if DraftKings Casino isn't available in your state just quite yet, you can always check out DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, where you can win cash prizes all season long. So whether it's real cash games or fantasy, DraftKings got you covered. But more importantly than anything, DraftKings is safe and secure, so you can enjoy yourself with no worries. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to the DraftKings Casino app today and download using code NCHAMMER. Make a deposit of at least $5 and DraftKings will match your deposit up to $100 in casino credits. Reading manga isn't the only way to have fun nowadays. So today we're going to be giving a whole new definition to the term power couples. Because in the world of Naruto, the idea of a ninja marrying a non-ninja apparently just doesn't happen all that often. Now, could this be because 80% of people in the Naruto world appear to be ninjas? Maybe. Or could it be because ninjas believe that the only people who will fully understand them are other ninjas, or because they're trying to make superpowered kids to strengthen their village down the line? Also, maybe, but I don't necessarily have the answer to the question. All I know is that there's 30 plus couples in Naruto that are comprised of two ninjas smushing lovelies. Well, actually, there's no couples doing this. Kishimoto won't write it even though we keep asking. They don't actually do that, by the way, but we all know what we're talking about. And because there's over 30 couples of shinobi on shinobi action, I had to make a couple of artistic cuts. So a couple of couples you think may be on this list probably won't be. On top of that, we're also not taking into account fan fiction couples. So no, Boruto and Sarada, Karin and Suigetsu, Orochimaru and Kabuto won't be on this list. I have to see them at least hold hands before they make this list, which I have at least seen from the rest of the entries on this list. So let's get to those entries. Coming in 10th place, we have the current 8th Hokage and his lovely wife, the love of my life, Temari. Now, I know what a lot of you are saying.
Nick, Shikamaru and Temari at number 10, what are you thinking?
But listen, this couple encapsulates peaked in high school. Let's talk about Temari first. Temari is undoubtedly one of the strongest wind style users in all of Naruto. Her Tessenjutsu, or the jutsus that revolve around the usage of her iron fan, allows her to create violent torrents of wind. And with these violent torrents of wind, she's done everything from blow away Tenten's kunai to rearrange Tenten's back, to going so far as to cut down an entire forest to kill Tayuya, one of the Sound Village 5. And she's able to do this once her fan opens to 3 moons. As once Temari's fan opens to 3 moons, all of the wind she generates with it slices in a way that she can actually control. Yes, that's right. A little known fact about Temari is that she's not just making huge, reckless gusts of wind. The slicing whirlwinds that Temari creates after opening to 3 moons, she can control with her chakra from afar. And by the time that Shippuden came around, Temari was known as the best wind style user in the 4th division. So powerful that her wind was able to injure the body of the 3rd Raikage, one of the most durable human beings in Naruto's history. And if she doesn't want to rely on her fan, she has her summoning, the Sickle Weasel, which is the reason that Temari was able to cut down an entire forest in OG Naruto to take out Tayuya. Since the 4th Great Shinobi Worlds War, Temari has made a grand total of 0 progress, because her, like every other female character in this story, was completely sidelined in Boruto. However, at least she hasn't taken a step back, like the other half of her relationship. Because while Shikamaru was the first out of the Konoha 12 to be granted the title of Chunin on account of his genius, which would then lead to him being chosen as the leader of the Sasuke retrieval arc, where he showed his intellect was at a massive level that allowed them to at least get their best possible shot at getting Sasuke back. For all intents and purposes, ever since Shikamaru took out Hidan, he decided to take a big step backwards power-wise. Because, while yes, with a massive amount of prep time, Shikamaru was able to take out Hidan. Hidan is also the weakest member of the Akatsuki, and while in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Shikamaru's shadow possession technique was shown to be able to do things like pick up Choji's human bullet tank and use him as a flailing mace, as well as hold powerful Edo Tensei shinobi like Asuma in place. Ever since the conclusion of the 4th Great Shinobi World War, Shikamaru's role within the village has switched from combat to politics. And while many people who haven't read the light novels will say,
but Shikamaru managed to paralyze all of the Kage at once,
they don't realize that the context of that situation is that Shikamaru lashed out at all the Kages and they didn't break out of his shadow possession because they were being polite. And after Shikamaru lashed out at all those Kage, in a fit of anger, he tried to use his shadow strangle on a tree and couldn't break it. So Shikamaru's shadow possession technique by the time of Boruto isn't tree level. So while Shikamaru's intellect is still nothing to be trifled with, as he recently in the Boruto manga figured out that his memories had been swapped of his own volition, proving that he is possibly more intelligent than even Amado, from a personal power standpoint, Shikamaru is by far and away the weakest Hokage to ever rule over Konoha, which is why him and his lovely, lovely wife are sitting in the number 10 spot. But since we're talking about Hokages, and specifically not the strong ones, coming up at number 9, we have Dan and Tsunade. And now I can already hear a fair amount of you screaming,
but Nick, what about Tsunade and Jiraiya?
Let's once again take a look back at that rule we established earlier that said no fanfic. I gotta at least see him hold hands. And Tsunade and Jiraiya didn't even do that on screen. Now, were they bumping uglies off screen? Maybe. And if Jiraiya made it back from the Hidden Rain village, would he have married Tsunade? Probably. But the only thing that got penetrated between the two of them in that relationship was Jiraiya's back. At least, that we saw. So for this list, it's Dan and Tsunade. Now we're gonna start with Dan, because we know just way less about him than we do Tsunade. But what we do know about Dan is that he had access to Fire, Wind, Earth, Yin, and Yang release, making him one of like only 8 people in the entire story with Yin Yang release. On top of this, Kakuzu referred to Dan and Asuma as the gold and silver generals of Konoha, implying that in nefarious circles, Dan was viewed with a fair amount respect. And this is backed up by the fact that Kabuto decided that Dan would be an important asset to revive in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. And everything that we saw from Dan in the 4th Great Shinobi World War does kind of back those points up. Dan has a couple of incredibly rare abilities, like the ability to freely transfer his chakra to multiple people. And he presumably learned this ability because he has an insanely high chakra reserve. In fact, before Dan decided to go back to the Pure Lands, he refilled Tsunade's entire chakra pool, strength of 100 seal included, which is like an Uzumaki level of chakra, as the only other person who's ever been able to do that, specifically for Tsunade, was Karin. On top of this, Dan had a spirit transformation technique that just allowed him to shoot his soul out of his body to either take over other people or just fight them as an ethereal spirit, which Dan told the 4th Division, who were actively trying to wrangle him, took many lives during his life. So for all intents and purposes, we know that Dan was a deadly shinobi, but not so deadly as his significant other, Tsunade. See, while both Dan and Tsunade operate as pseudo-support types, we're not going to sit here and act like Tsunade hasn't gone toe-to-toe with some of the toughest people in all of Naruto history. As Tsunade, through the power of her strength of 100 seal, was able to crack Madara Susanoo ribcage with a kick, keep the entirety of Konoha on life support in the battle against Nagato, go toe-to-toe with the likes of Orochimaru and Kabuto until her hemophobia kicked in, frequently, over the course of both the 2nd and 3rd Great Shinobi World War, go toe-to-toe with the likes of Granny Chiyo, one of the most dangerous and deadly shinobi of all time. So while yes, in the grand scope of all the Hokages, Tsunade isn't all that powerful, she is at least the 2nd greatest medical shinobi of all time, who was able to survive a bout against Madara, and yeah, she got cut in half, but so did all the other Kage, and they would have died without her. So is this the deadliest couple of all time? No, but are they tough to kill? Absolutely. And probably tougher to kill than our number 8 spot, because both of them are dead, because coming in at number 8, we have Hiruzen and his wife, Biwaku. You guys remember Biwaku, right? Main character of the story, Biwaku. You guys remember that incredible moment in the story when Biwaku tells Nagato that the cycle of pain he's trying to propagate would never create anything but that pain? Or when Biwaku convinced Obito to join the side of the good guys for one last hurrah in the battle against Kaguya, right? We were all there for that. Obviously, all jokes aside here, Biwaku is the most irrelevant character on this entire list. But that doesn't mean we don't actually know a fair amount about her. See, Biwaku had been around since the foundation of Konoha. The village is not that old. Biwaku was a medical koinaichi, and a jonin at that, which means she was a pretty high-level shinobi, comparable to that of a low-level Tsunade or Sakura. Probably more comparable to that of a Shizune than anything, but still. And because she was a medical professional and the wife of a very important man, she was kind of the nurse for the stars, which is why pretty much the only time we ever get any Biwaku time is through the medium of Kushina, as Biwaku was Kushina's midwife. However, unfortunately for Biwaku, she was Kushina's midwife, and thus when Obito came into town to go baby killing, she got in the way. So we know she was at least not as strong as teenage Obito, which is kind of a high bar. But enough about Biwaku, let's talk about her husband, Hiruzen. Now, Hiruzen is unfortunately pretty much the most enigmatic character in terms of power in all of Naruto. There are those who believe that Hiruzen was the strongest Hokage of all time because we were told that, and then there are those who use some context clues to figure out that maybe Hiruzen wasn't the strongest Hokage of all time. But Hiruzen was the original holder of the God of Shinobi title until it was also given to Hashirama, and so trying to pinpoint exactly how powerful Hiruzen is kind of tough. So all we can do with Hiruzen is go over what we know. He's like one of 7 people in Naruto can use all 7 elemental releases, meaning that Hiruzen, just like Sasuke and Naruto, can create Kekkei Genkai kind of whenever he wants to. And this is conducive with basically everything we know about Hiruzen, especially the fact that he was known as the Professor, because he was said to know every single jutsu of the leaf, minus Flying Raijin, which would have been like super helpful in that battle against Orochimaru, but whatever. But abilities-wise, Hiruzen has only ever really been really impressive. See, while some can highball Hiruzen's battle against Hashirama, Tobirama, and Orochimaru as an old man to truly make the argument that he is the strongest Hokage of all time, there is the fact that in that fight, Orochimaru hadn't mastered Edo Tensei yet. And in that fight, Hashirama and Tobirama weren't in control of themselves. But still, even defeating a 30% Hashirama and Tobirama and Orochimaru all at once speaks to how insanely powerful Hiruzen must have been at the peak of his power. But unfortunately, when it comes to peak of his power feats, we don't have a whole lot. We know that Hiruzen was able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Kurama using his Monkey King Enma pole to push Kurama out of the village, and we know a lot of his power is inherently tied into Monkey King Enma, as Monkey King Enma is probably in the top 3 of strength when it comes to summoning animals in Naruto. I mean, a completely dexterous and talking monkey who's able to turn into an adamantite staff that can also clone itself as that adamantite staff is pretty strong when you consider the fact that adamantite is the strongest material in Naruto. But Hiruzen's strength didn't come from his depth, but his birth, as Hiruzen was able to use all 5 elemental releases with an equal amount of mastery, which is why he would frequently do things like create 4 shadow clones and have himself and the 4 shadow clones all release the elements all at once at an individual. And the scale of these elemental releases was so powerful, they were able to go toe-to-toe with things like giant wooden golems. But once again, the scariest thing about Hiruzen was his birth, as the birth of his knowledge also allowed him to learn things like the Reaper Death Seal, a technique that Orochimaru didn't even know existed. And it was that incredibly deep bag of jutsu that allowed for Hiruzen to remain one of the strongest people in Konoha's history until his death. But was he as strong as Itachi? Who knows? Well, I guess I must know, actually, because coming up at number 7, we have Itachi and Izumi. And it, kind of looks like I'm making an executive decision there. Listen, this isn't necessarily me saying that Itachi is stronger than Hiruzen, because I think that would be a really good fight. But I was just writing names down on a list and this kind of happened. So much like with our last entry on the list, let's start with the question mark character here. And that question mark character would be Izumi Uchiha, who, unless you are a big Itachi fan like myself, you probably don't know. Now, Izumi Uchiha is actually only half Uchiha. Yeah, before the Uchiha massacre, she is the only example of an Uchiha breeding outside of their own clan. Just like the British royalty. Gotta get some new blood in there occasionally. And because Izumi was only half Uchiha, she actually lived away from the Uchiha for the first couple of years of her life. But she came back just in time, because when she decided to move back to the village, Kurama attacked it. But because of that, she got to be saved by Itachi, and they kind of fell in love. I mean, it took time, but you know, they did it eventually. But before she could be saved by Itachi, she had to watch her father die at the hands of Kurama, which awoke her Sharingan before Itachi even awoke his, probably because his parents were too powerful to die at the hands of Kurama. And eventually, after awakening her Sharingan, Izumi was able to level that Sharingan to a 3-Tomei, though she never got beyond the class of Genin. And Nick, why did she never get beyond the class of Genin? Because she was the first person that Itachi killed in the Uchiha massacre. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you end a lover's quarrel. Just kidding. That's what OJ did. But since that's basically all we know about Izumi, let's talk about Itachi. We've certainly never done it before. Itachi is the prodigal son of the Uchiha clan. He was such a powerful child that Danzo and Hiruzen literally had to change the rules on how to join the Anbu in order to get him in as young as possible, which, like, you would assume would make Tobirama upset, but then you have to remember Uchiha. From there, Itachi would spend the next couple of years in the Anbu, protecting the feudal lord, spying on the Uchiha, killing Shisui, awakening his MS, and after awakening his MS, Itachi truly awoke to the power that would make him legendary. After awakening his MS, Itachi awoke to both Amaterasu and Tsukiyomi, 2 of the strongest MS abilities one can acquire. A black shootable flame that's only extinguished when whatever it hits burns to ashes, or the user decides to turn it off, and an instant and immediate genjutsu that shoots the person casted into it into a universe that the caster basically controls as God for as much time as they want, that can also kill. Ask Izumi. And if you don't feel like making eye contact with Itachi or being grilled by him, he always has his Susanoo, and arguably the strongest incomplete Susanoo in the entire story, as it's the wielder of the Yata mirror, a mirror that allows Itachi to possibly deflect literally any attack, be it genjutsu, ninjutsu, or taijutsu, and the Totsuka blade that allows Itachi to seal whatever he skewers with this blade into the realm of drunken dreams, a pocket dimension where whoever is sealed gets to be dizzy for possibly until Itachi dies, but also maybe forever. forever. And considering the fact that an Edo Itachi was able to catch an Edo Nagato lacking with this attack, the upper ceiling on Itachi's power is kind of terrifying, especially when you consider the fact that he mostly carried Sasuke through a battle against Dragon Sage Kabuto. So is he stronger than Hiruzen? Who knows? But his girlfriend had a 3-Tome Sharingan, so I'm gonna say she was stronger than Biwaku. But since we're talking about dead women and Sharingan, next up on our list, coming in at number 6, we have Fugaku and Mikoto, Itachi's parents. Now, Mikoto Uchiha kind of falls into the same camp as Izumi, but older, as we basically know nothing about Mikoto Uchiha as a shinobi outside of the fact that she had a 3-Tome Sharingan and held the rank of Jonin. So she's kind of like Biwaku. Biwaku wasn't a medical kunoichi, which does mean strength-wise she is substantially stronger than both Izumi and Biwaku, which is why Fugaku and Mikoto are above Itachi and Izumi for me, because while, yes, technically we don't know how strong Fugaku was, we do know, like his son, he was a dual MS wielder. And we do know, like Minato, he had a run on site order, as Fugaku was known as Wicked Eye Fugaku, and held so much power that it was genuinely believed that he held as good a shot to be the 4th Hokage as Minato or Orochimaru. And since Fugaku, who definitely wasn't stupid, legitimately thought the Uchiha stood a good enough chance at defeating Konoha by themselves, I'm assuming the majority of that calculation was him taking his own power into account. And considering the fact as a dual MS wielder he had access to a Susanoo, he might have been right. But who knows? He's so dead he didn't get brought back to life in the 4th Great Shinobi World War, so who's to say? But enough about people who wanted to be the 4th Hokage. What about people who were? Because coming up at number 5, we have Minato and Kushina. Now, this is one of the moments in this video where I'm gonna have to dip into the hypothetical a little bit here. Because while for the majority of Naruto's history, we didn't know much about Kushina's power level, the Minato one-shot gave us a much better look into the window that was Kushina. See, we've always known that Kushina is a full-blooded Uzumaki, and therefore her chakra and her life force is way higher than your average shinobi. We've also known that she was able to use the Uzumaki technique, the adamantite chains, and she's probably the best person we've ever seen use it, which makes sense when you consider the fact that a substantially weakened Kushina, who for all intents and purposes probably should have been dead as she had just had Kurama ripped out of her, was able to use her adamantite chains so well and so strongly that she was not only able to seal Kurama within a barrier, but also make sure nobody from Konoha could get into battle against Kurama, meaning she made a barrier strong enough to not only hold Kurama, but also hold back the entire forces of Konoha on her deathbed. And her genius as a practitioner of Fuinjutsu was well documented in the Minato one-shot, as the courting period for Minato and Kushina was largely contingent on Minato learning Fuinjutsu from Kushina. But even though she was an Uzumaki, she wasn't always a great Jinchuriki to Kurama. As for a large amount of her life, she was actually required to stay in a certain radius within Konoha that had a seal, as that seal on the ground strengthened the 8 trigram seal on her belly and stopped any of Kurama's chakra from leaking out. And therefore, if she ever left this area, she ran the risk of having Kurama take over her body, which is something that we actually see happen in the Minato one-shot. However, after Minato was able to complete her 8 trigram seal by putting a little part of himself within the 8 trigram seal to exist in Kushina forever, she could then leave that immediate area. And now, while we don't technically know what her relationship with Kurama was like after the completion of her 8 trigram seal, we saw specifically in the Minato one-shot that she was able to manifest a version 1 and version 2 cloak, neither of the which were voluntary, mind you. But since Minato was the Jinchuriki of Kurama and might have been able to use at least a little bit of his powers after the events of the Minato one-shot, as well as being a full-blooded Uzumaki who was probably the greatest Fuinjutsu user we've ever seen. If she's not the strongest woman we've had on this list thus far, she's the second. But Minato is the strongest man we've had on this list thus far. Because while Minato was the yellow flash of the leaf while he was alive, he only became stronger after his death, as Minato was able to, just like his son Naruto, manifest a KCM2 cloak in the War Arc. Now this is because on the night of Naruto's birth, Minato was able to separate Kurama into 2 halves. The half that he was sealing into Naruto with the 8 trigram seal, and the half that he pulled into himself with the Reaper Death seal. And because Minato and that half of Kurama had been floating in the Shinigami's stomach for 16-ish years, Minato became the Jinchuriki of that half of Kurama, making Minato almost as powerful as 4th Great Shinobi World War Naruto, especially when you consider the fact that Minato was also, like that version of Naruto, a perfect frog sage. And when you consider the fact that Reaper Death Seal is a chakra tug of war, this means that Minato also, on death's door, had enough chakra to pull half of Kurama into him, meaning that Minato on death's door, after battling against the likes of Obito and sealing away half of Kurama in his own son with a finger the size of a car in his stomach, still had as much chakra as half of Kurama. And with all that information taken into account, you can understand why Minato was considered a run-on-sight threat.
But Nick, why aren't you mentioning the time he killed 1,000 soldiers?
Because he didn't kill 1,000 soldiers, he killed 50. There was 4 people from Konoha left and 50 from the Hidden Stone left when he got there. Inoki tells us the whole story. Listen, I want to believe it too. It's an incredible story, but unfortunately, it's not how it panned out. But he did go toe-to-toe with A and Killer B simultaneously and basically drawed. He also, apparently, according to the Minato one-shot in the Second Great Shinobi World War, was going toe-to-toe with the likes of Han and Roshi, who were apparently perfect Jinchuriki. Oh, and he created Rasengan. Yeah, he did a lot, but not as much as his Uzumaki's smashing predecessor, Hashirama, because coming up at number 4, we got Hashirama and Mito. And basically, everything I just said about Kushina applies to Mito. She was the daughter of the head of the Uzumaki clan, and the first ever Jinchuriki of Kurama. And while we know next to nothing about her abilities as a shinobi, Kushina hailed her as one of the most powerful kunoichis she ever knew. Whose Fuinjutsu was so powerful she was able to seal the entirety of Kurama into herself, probably using the 8 trigram seal, which had a part of Hashirama in it. However, even amongst the Uzumaki, Mito's chakra was considered especially potent, which is why she was selected amongst all of the Uzumakis to be the Jinchuriki of Kurama. And the potency of her chakra/life force was put on full display when you consider the fact that she didn't die until Hiruzen became Hokage. And actually, she didn't die until almost Minato became Hokage. But this is Naruto we're talking about, so let's get to talking about the men here. Because Mito's husband was none other than the actual god of shinobi, Hashirama Senju, the leader of the Senju clan and the co-founder of Konoha. The only man in history to beat Madara twice. And also one of like 3 people in the Naruto universe to have 8+ releases. All 5 elemental releases, yin yang and wood. I think the only other people on that list are Naruto and Sasuke. And actually, Sasuke may not even be on that list. No, I was right. Sasuke doesn't have yang release. How does he have ice release then? We don't know, but Hashirama being in the 8+ release category makes sense when you consider the fact that Senju refers to 1,000 tasks. That is to say that the Senju clan prided themselves on being good at everything. And Hashirama, inarguably the strongest Senju ever, took that to the nth degree. As Hashirama was not only a perfect sage of something, but he was also an incredibly talented Kenjutsu user. Yes, that scroll he wears on his back is filled with swords. There's also probably top 5 in terms of the sheer strength of his ninjutsu. Because, while yes, absolutely Hashirama could use all elemental releases, more than anything, he used his iconic wood release, a combination of water and earth release, which he would use to do anything from making giant wood golems to wood dragons that would bite into tailed beasts to 1,000 armed canons that he would ride on top of that were the size of mountains. But Hashirama didn't always have to make wooden constructs. Sometimes Hashirama would just make forests, like the forest that surrounds Konoha. Yes, that was made by Hashirama. And sometimes those forests he would make would come along with flowering trees, whose pollen, when released and inhaled, would induce unconsciousness and sometimes death. Yes, that's right, Hashirama could just grow a forest the size of a battlefield that would release pollen that would render everybody on the battlefield unconscious. It's called Wood Release Advent of World of Flowering Trees. On top of this, Hashirama is able to make wooden domes that are able to deflect tailed beast balls, giant wooden hands that come out of the ground that can grab tailed beasts like they're misbehaving kittens. And if he wants to get real serious, he can drop giant tori, or Japanese gates, from the sky that can pin things like the 10 tails or Obito in his 10 tails form to the ground. And not only do these giant tori suppress the chakra of what's ever pinned below them, but it also pacifies what's ever pinned below them, which is why these tori have been able to pin some of the strongest things in the entire universe to the ground. Also, Hashirama, as a perfect sage, is able to constantly pull in nature energy so long as he isn't moving, which he's usually not doing because he just rides along on his wooden constructs, which makes him the almost perfect fighter.
But Nick, you got bullied in the 4th Great Shinobi World's War.
The version of Hashirama we saw in the 4th Great Shinobi World War was not his peak, as those who are brought back as they died, and Hashirama might have died of old age. Hashirama, at his peak, was using his true 1,000 arm Kanon to punch Susanos off of Kurama. And there's a grand total of maybe 2 other people in the universe who could do that. Not including Otsutsuki's. It's never including Otsutsuki's.
But Nick, if Hashirama was such a legendary shinobi and the god of shinobi, why is he at number 4 on this list?
Well, because coming in at number 3, we have an absolute curveball that I bet a lot of you didn't see coming. We have Kaguya and Tenji.
Oh, but Nick, Kaguya and Tenji's relationship is entirely filler.
Do we think she knocked herself up? Tenji was the emperor of, and I'm not making this up, the land of the ancestors. Yeah, the Naruto showrunners got real creative with that one. Tenji lived before the establishment of shinobi because people prior to Kaguya didn't have chakra, which means that this couple right here is the only couple on this list that's not a shinobi marrying another shinobi. Nope, this was an emperor marrying a moon princess. So far as abilities go in the Tenji camp, all we know is he could shoot a bow, which isn't going to get you far, unless, of course, the woman you just knocked up with twins is a god. But then again, that whole god thing could possibly backfire against you if that god gets kidnapped and then she kills her kidnappers and then you get super weird about it because she's way stronger than you thought she was gonna be. And so you get like a little aggro and you pull out that little bow of yours and she's like, you literally just watched me kill all these men, put your weapons down, and then you don't do that. So she eats a chakra fruit and then she gets a weird third eye, which I didn't sign up for cosmetically. And so she wraps you up in all these leaves and you become a husk that joins this army of 100,000 husks that are later used to battle against this thing called the Shinobi Alliance in 2,000 years, which all could have been avoided if you weren't such a misogynist. Like, really, the entirety of Naruto could have been avoided if Tenji was like, that was kind of hot. God knows that's what I would say. Hey, you marry the woman who just came down from the sky and who looks nothing like any human you've ever seen. She starts killing people when she gets kidnapped. You say, good job, babe. Proud of you. But yeah, the majority, and by majority, I mean the entirety of the weight in this relationship from a power scaling perspective is being carried by Kaguya. She's an Otsutsuki, and a powerful Otsutsuki at that. Even before consuming the chakra fruit that later gave her the ability to cast the world into infinite Tsukiyomi, she tore Ishiki in half. And then she ate a chakra fruit, which possibly had Shibai's power in it, which allowed her to awaken the first and technically only Rinne Sharingan ever. Now, do all the other Otsutsuki look down at Kaguya because she's a lower rank who jumped a higher rank? Yes, but was her seal only done by 2 characters touching her simultaneously? Also, yes. Because here's the thing. Kaguya is the mother of the modern ninja. Half of her blood was enough to make the literal Sage of Six Paths. Kaguya is the only person on this list with access to something known as Keke Mora, which is the combination of all 5 elemental releases and yin and yang. It's 7 elements smashed together. Now, while some of you will make the argument that at one point Naruto did have access to Keke Mora in the form of the True Seeker Orbs, he no longer has access to those, and Kaguya has True Seeker Orbs and more, like 80 Gods Vacuum Attack, which essentially super boosts Kaguya's fists with Keke Mora power that she can then use to rain a barrage of fists onto any foe. And she uses the incredible strength of these fists in conjunction with her Byakugan to do things like, oh, I don't know, destroy an entire full-body Susanoo being wielded by Sasuke. She also has Ashall Killing Bone, which allows her to fire a bone projectile out of her palm that made Obito experience the Tom Holland experience. She also kind of has Dry as Needle Jizo, as Kaguya is able to harden her hair and fire it like projectiles. However, instead of just being able to stop things like an Orochimaru bite, it can shoot directly through a Susanoo, which is considered an absolute defense. And yes, on top of all of this, she also has control of True Seeker Orbs. On top of this, Kaguya can travel between dimensions with Yamotsu Hirasaka, or just rip part of dimensions to her current location using Amina Manaka. And if all of that fails, she can just turn into a Ten Tails. So all in all, if you're hooking up with her, just be cool, man. And I can say the same thing about the next woman on this list, because coming in at number 2, we have Sasuke and Sakura. Listen, if Dan and Tsunade made this list because Tsunade was a part of the couple, then yeah, it would make sense that Sakura, who's as strong, if not stronger than Tsunade, and happy to marry a man who said that he could solo Kaguya, would be a little bit higher on this list. What do I need to say about these two that you don't already know? Sakura is able to, like Tsunade, use the Strength of 100 seal, which she has used to do things like regenerate an entire blast-off arm, run down a tailed beast tail that impaled her through the stomach and punch the user, use the strength granted to her through the Strength of 100 seal to punch Kaguya into position to be sealed by the Six-Path Chibaka Tensei, mind you, and so much more. Tie that into the fact that she's probably the greatest medical Kunoichi of all time, as she has, on multiple occasions saved both Naruto and Sasuke's lives. She also, like Tsunade, is able to summon Lady Katsuyo, who can be split into hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of clones to be placed on individual people's shoulders to heal them throughout combat. She is now completely and totally immune to Genjutsu, more so than a full Kurama Jinchuriki Naruto, and her chakra control is so precise that she's able to feed chakra into a building and see everything that's happening in that building. Kind of like a Byakugan, but without her eyes. Tie that into the fact that in Sasuke Retsudan, we also learned that she learned Genjutsu like she was supposed to a decade ago, and she's probably the physically strongest person in all of Naruto. Yeah, that's a menacing woman. If she married Tenji, they'd still be in the top 5 of this list. I mean, she's gone toe-to-toe with multiple high-level Anbu members in tailed beast cloaks and won. But her husband is Sasuke, who, like I've already established, said that he could defeat Kaguya in a one-on-one battle, and he's backed that up. Sasuke went toe-to-toe against Momoshiki and Kinshiki simultaneously, and while he didn't win, he also didn't lose. Not to mention when he teamed up with Naruto, him and Naruto were absolutely running the fade of fused Momoshiki. And while he was all but irrelevant in the battle against Ishiki, it's because he didn't have a tailed beast to collide his chakra with to make an entirely new form of energy. On top of that, in the last, he made it very clear to everybody in Konoha that he would be able to very easily slice up Madara's meteors nowadays, as after the Suicide Corps led by Rock Lee cut the meteor that was hurtling towards Konoha in half, he almost effortlessly destroyed the half that was still falling towards Konoha with his Chidori. And while nowadays he no longer has his Rinne Sharingan, his 6 Tome Rinnegan, there is a definitive possibility that after spending some time fence-danced in the God Tree that he's currently hanging out in, that he could wake up with a healed 6 Tome Rinnegan, which he could and should be able to use all of the abilities of the Rinnegan with. So the Asura, Deva, Animal, Preta, all those paths he has access to. And while he doesn't use those paths all that often, using the Heavenly Hand power, part of the Rinnegan more often than not, the Heavenly Hand power of his 6 Tome Rinnegan is enough to give fits to both Ishiki and Momoshiki, who are both presumably stronger than Kaguya. So yeah, Sarada's gonna be really powerful. Hopefully, at least. But not as powerful as a number 1 power couple in this list. Can you guess who it is, ladies and gentlemen? Well, if you guessed Choji and Karui, you were right. Choji's ability to use partial expansion jutsu to focus on both length and girth simultaneously means that he's taken the number 1 spot. I mean, that's how we took Karui's number 1. I am kidding, it's Naruto and Hinata, obviously. And honestly, this is kind of a contentious pick, because here's the thing. Naruto is stronger than Sasuke, and while Naruto may not still be stronger than Sasuke with their both current nerfs, though I do think that Naruto is still stronger than Sasuke, Sakura is probably stronger than Hinata, especially nowadays, because 1, Sakura works at the hospital where she's incredibly involved in medical ninjutsu, and 2, we know she still takes on missions, as she was very involved in the Sasuke Retsudan plotline, which took place during the Mujina Bandits arc, I believe. And Hinata's not doing any of that. While Hinata might be popping on by the Hyuga compound occasionally to do a little gentle fist, she's not actively fighting anybody, and she has no medical ninjutsu to be practicing or anything like that. So genuinely, if you wanted to make the argument that Sasuke and Sakura are now, as a couple, stronger than Naruto and Hinata, I couldn't really say you're wrong, because Naruto's nerf lost him not only Kurama, but half of his chakra. And while Naruto losing half of his chakra is like the rest of the world losing 1/10 of their chakra, Sasuke didn't lose any chakra when he lost his 6 Tome Rinnegan. In fact, like Kakashi, he lost something that was a massive chakra drain. And while Sasuke is undoubtedly more powerful with the 6 Tome Rinnegan, there's a definite argument to be made that Sasuke was less nerfed than Naruto. So did that make up for the gap in their power? I don't know. But there are very few arguments to be made that Hinata is more powerful than Sakura. Yes, she got chakra from Hamura, but is she using that chakra? Was all of that chakra used in the destruction of the Tenseigan? Did all of that chakra get pumped into Boruto? Just can't really say. Because while Hinata is definitely more offensively focused than Sakura, as her twin lion fist technique is genuinely one of the scariest and most powerful techniques in all of Naruto, as it's essentially just her turning her own hands into Byakugan gentle fist Samehadas. As a little known fact about the twin lion fists is that when they make contact with a target, they seep chakra from that target, making the twin lion fists a perpetual motion machine jutsu. But even with that, I just don't see Hinata having enough AP to even put a real dent in Sakura. So who knows, I actually might be talking myself out of this ranking, but I'll leave it up to you. If you had to say what the most powerful couple in all of Naruto is, who would you go with? Naruto and Hinata, or Sasuke and Sakura? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, Like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. This is the first video I haven't written a script for in so long, and I forgot just like how much I love improv.